Well, hello there, and welcome to this magnificent podcast that we are starting with Ken here. Yeah, Ken, let's say a little bit about ourselves and why are we doing this, and let's take it from there.
Well, Arek, thank you for welcoming me and actually us to start this inaugural podcast with Open Jar. The name of this podcast, we decided with a little bit of consulting our AI, we're going to call this our No Lids, No Limits. And I'm very excited about this, Arek, to be part of this because we have had some very good conversations in our past as on some of these topics, which we thought, hey, we should just take the lids off and share this with our audience and really engage in this conversation. So a little bit of background for myself as a start, and I'll come back to you for your introduction to introduce yourself, Arek. Yeah, I'm Kin Leong. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. I'm a manufacturing operations professional for more than 30 years. My passion is in manufacturing, more so in electronics manufacturing. So I've worked for both EMSs and with EMSs for many years, and being very fortunate that for about a period of 15 years, I was doing a lot of offshoring to China and working very closely with Chinese EMSs as well. So I've learned a lot in my experience, and I'm hoping to share some of my knowledge and experience with the audience here through this conversation.
And the knowledge is very broad, very deep, and it's always great to listening to you. That's why we kicked off, as you said, with that, because it has been always a pleasure of mine to have our chats and discussions. And it's time to share it with the world. Let's open the lid and let's have no limits. My name is Arek. I've been in the industry for a little bit over 20 years, mainly focusing on Eastern Europe. Done some work with different distributors and then EMSs, and I'm working together with Kin and Shintan on this open jar, and we're kicking off this very first podcast of ours. So here we go, and we wanted really to start with something that is interesting for everybody, and everybody's talking about AI, but we're not really focusing that much on how to implement and what are the values on a daily task of an EMS company. And this is, let's say, our bread and butter that we want to focus on. So that's what we want to give it a try. So, Kin, I'm gonna ask you the very first questions. What are the first steps that the company should look into right now when I'm an EMS and I'm hearing all that noise about AI, but I really don't know what to do and where to go. So what do you feel like it's the very first step in that matter?
Well, that's a very good question, Eric. The first steps in looking at implementing AI into a manufacturing operation, like implementing any other enterprise level software, think of ERP system, CRM, deeper data analysis, is always to focus on the value that the tool is able to bring to your company. Look at the return on investment or the ROI. You know, is bringing this tool going to really help me? As a in a manufacturing operations? Is this going to generate more business? Is this going to get me more customers? Is this going to engage my current customers better? What is the value that this tool is going to bring? If all that the tool does is to just create more work for my team, that's not bringing value. If all this does is make my customers give them more data, more information that they
Mhm.
don't really need or use, that's also not bringing value. So really kind of take a deeper thinking into what the value creation, value generation chain is.
Okay. Okay. But is there anything specific the company should be looking for? I know anything that we are focusing. Is there any specific tool like you would say, hey, if you're just starting, do it right now on this thing, or what's the thing that you would recommend?
Yeah, the I think when it comes to looking at AI tools today in manufacturing operations, I always try to think of starting with the things that are easy to get into, rather than looking at, oh, I'm going to try to use AI to solve my production optimization or production planning problem. These are really big problems. I mean, even very mature companies have a lot of issues with and challenges with solving these bigger problems with a team of people, let alone just a tool like AI. I think to look at the current processes within your operations and to look at how can it be improved first, not just bringing in AI, but what am I really trying to do? So, you know, If we have, for example, an inventory problem, let's say overstocked inventory, which is a very common problem for a lot of EMS operations or manufacturing operations, what is it that I need to fix? Inventory problem is not a warehouse problem; it's a supply chain problem.
Mhm.
How did I end up with all this inventory? Did I not look at calling out inventory that might not be moving them? Stale inventory in my system. So start looking at those first. That's not an AI problem. That's just a
Mhm.
process problem. Really focus on the processes that were broken to start with. I draw on my experience working with ERP implementations. Companies bring in ERP systems similarly to try to fix inventory problems or fix cash flow problems. ERP system doesn't fix these problems. It's the people when they implement the ERP, and the ERP consultants often will say this, you got to fix your own processes. And as part of the implementation of an ERP system is to really take a deeper look at where the processes were broken to start with. Focus on the things that are easy and not so time consuming, and also the repetitive problems. Those are
Mhm.
the things that are the low hanging fruits that any operations expert should be looking at first, because that's going to really generate a much bigger return. I love the idea behind Pareto's laws. You know, the Pareto law says spend 20% effort to get 80% return. Don't focus on solving 100% right up front. And I think that's a real good way to look at those low hanging fruits.
So what you're saying is it's not really the tool itself, but then the way that we are approaching this, and we should always approach it from the process and the problem side rather than the tool.
That's right.
Okay. And
That's
then
right.
when we're looking at this, the easy and repeated task, let's say for the state of AI that is today would be the way to go. Okay. What about the data? Is it really important to have a specific type of data when you're working with AI, or what is there anything we should be looking differently?
Yeah, again, being a former ISIT manager, I could assure you that the data is the most important piece. Any
Mm.
system, whether it's AI or other systems like an ERP or CRM system, if you don't have good data, you have garbage in, garbage out situation. So you've got to have very clean data to start with. And what I mean by clean data is making sure that the data is reflective of the kinds of input that you want your people, your customers to work with. And when I talk about people, I really always strongly think that it's not just the people on your own staff, but the people
Mhm.
you interact with. And these include absolutely your customers and your vendors and your other partners in the business. It takes a whole team to run a manufacturing operations. And without interacting with the customers and vendors, it's not going to work. But to look at the data you use with them, are you getting correct information from your vendor? Lead times, pricing, those are very important pieces of data that we can see right from the surface from the vendor side. Customers involve delivery dates, pricing, even the bills of materials you get from your customers that you're working to. Are those data clean? So having a process to really look at the data is very important. As we start to look at using that data and in AI systems, where I found in many cases, the AI also can start to reveal information in the data that you didn't even think was there. There's a lot of unused data that is
Mhm.
often exists in these systems, and that's something that the AI is very very good at doing. As it you use it with other systems. I think the AI can potential. I'm very hopeful. I haven't quite seen hands on how an AI would work with an ERP system, but you have to consider the data that's already in your legacy systems, whether it's an ERP system, whether it's data being collected from your IoTs on the line, whether it's data being collected by your pick and place machines, your AOI machines, SPIs. There's a lot of data there. So under the whole Industry 4.0 regime and methodology way of thinking, is you really have to look at this big data that's already there.
Okay. So in terms of data, it's not only the quality that we're talking about, but also the quantity that we might get, and a lot of this is probably overwhelming for us. So as you said, there is a lot of unused data that we didn't process. So here is one thing that definitely AI can help and quickly go through that and give us some interesting feedback on that. So yeah, that's a very good observation. Highly appreciate it. And then when you mention legacy systems, implementing something like an ERP takes a lot of time. Is it the same thing with changing your process to a more AI driven ones, or would you say this is a little bit easier task?
That's a very good question. I think of there's a lot of hype recently in the media
Hmm.
about AI and all the great things that it's able to do for us. Everything from, oh, you can write your emails automatically, to going through your inbox and sorting through all the unread emails and summarizing that for you. Or I've recently used it to create business plans. The AI is, I think of it as not so much of some really magical tool, but it's a very capable assistant to me. And the AI, no doubt, is evolving very quickly to become smarter and more capable. Working with the AI, always going back to the point we touched on earlier, look at the processes. Where are you spending a lot of time
Hmm.
and not observing the Pareto law? So where are you spending 80% of your effort only to get 20% return? You want to reverse that. You want to spend 20% effort to get 80% return. So
Hmm.
if I find myself, for example, um, you know, having writer's block and can't write that particular blog article that my marketing team needs, maybe go to the AI and have ChatGPT or Gemini or any one of those very capable tools and give it a prompt, something like, um, I'm pretending to be a marketing person, and I need to write a blog article about the challenges with printing consistent solder paste and having the SPI system do some very good inspection. Give me some ideas on this blog article. And AI is very good at making those suggestions. I never suggest anyone to take an AI output at its face value. It's no different than in my many times when I've worked with co-op students and interns. You would never trust a co-op student or intern to just post a blog for you, but you would absolutely use their time and have a chance for them to learn to
Hmm.
draft an article, which you're going to review and edit before you post it. And that's exactly where the AI is I think of them as a very smart intern working on my team, and they have all the time in the world, and I don't have to, spend a lot of time babysitting them and guiding them, but I just have to give them some clear instructions on what I want, and don't expect them to come up on the first try to hit it, get it right. They might need to iterate two, three times. And that's exactly what the AI are very good at doing, is whether it's analyzing data or writing a blog article, let the AI give a chance. And then we as professionals still apply our judgment, our review to, really kind of look at whether that output is correct or not.
Okay. So what you're saying is we mentioned first focusing on the processes, then also focusing on the tasks that are taking a lot of your time. Maybe took out the most complex ones, or actually you could also use them on the complex ones that you cannot solve today. But looking at the easy repetitive tasks, this is definitely something that you would utilize it. But be careful with the data due to the also hallucinations of AI and verification into several sources to trust your intern.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, very, very cool to hear that. Um, I'd like to close this with this kind of remarks in general on AI and where do you think it's going. But I hope we could drive maybe the next session into a little bit more tools that we could use on a daily basis. Is that something? Okay.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of topics that I think we can dive into in this podcast, and we want the audience to really help guide us on what's the top of mind for everyone that we can help to solve. I mean, this is what Open Jar is really all about. Is the concept of keeping the jar open. You put an idea in, you take an idea out, and it's a forum great for sharing ideas and sharing thoughts and questions and answers. And I'm quite excited that this is a very good platform for us to engage more people into this thought process. But when Chinton, you and Chinton and I kind of just started these conversations. A lot of times we just through our regular chats, we come up with these very touchy, sensitive topics in some cases around manufacturing. For our with our combined experience, we're certainly very capable of diving into these topics, and where we can't, we're going to consult other experts, or maybe we may consult the AI. But that's what this. I think this is what's going to make it a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, we open the jar. We're gonna keep solving problems, and with the jar open, we really want the others to follow, listen, and take really active part of this post. So yeah, let's continue the discussion. Kim, thank you
All
for
right.
today, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you for having me on No Lids, No Limits.